Krishna Gurudev Parmeshwara Sakshat recap of verse 21 to 25. So here, Krishna talks about the common man. He says, we common man are in the dream state. We are not in the waking state. So in the dream state, we have each role to play, and we identify ourselves with the egocentric body rather than the self. So when that identification of egocentric body comes, then naturally it means the men, they are in the dream state. But here, the contact with the external world are clipped down. We get awakened by the ultimate joy in realizing the self. So what happens when the dream state is completely the illusion of the egocentric moves away? Then naturally we enjoy the ultimate joy in realizing the self. Thus, a person, when he devotes himself to meditate upon the Brahman, the happiness he attains is imperishable. So, once we awaken, we wake to the self, understand the self, and we start enjoying the self, then our meditation will be only upon the Brahman, and that happiness will not perish. It is imperishable. So it's like this verse talks about the desires and the kama, krodha, desires, fear, and the anger. So this example is what you have a sweet right in front of you. So eating one, it will be happy for you. Eating two, okay. 3, 4, it goes on, number increases. Naturally, that sweet itself will become a poison to you. But just eating that, you're hungry and looking at it and sitting there will make you even more angrier. So that is what desire, anger, and fear is. So when the desire comes, naturally the other both follows. A certain satisfactory joy in the beginning becomes a pit of sorrow. So sense objects being finite in nature do not enchant a wise man. So will the wise man get affected by any of this? No. He's happy. He gets simple food to eat and he's happy with that. He doesn't expect the same food the next day. Or he's happy with whatever he is and whatever place he's living in. And this verse talks about, the example is the violin. The violin is inside. This person is a violinist, and his grandfather was also a violinist. And there is a violin in this house that is not being used for quite some time, and it is in a showcase. Do you think that person can immediately take the violin and start playing the violin? No. Why? Because the person needs to tune the violin according to the needs. So this basically why we talk about the desire and anger in all the verses is for us to understand that we need to tune ourselves. Only when we tune our inner instrument, the mind, naturally we'll be able to visualize the self. So withstand the impulse of desire and anger. So impulse, that is, desire is always impulsive. When you see something, that impulsive desire to have that is what gives you anger and fear. Fear comes when you have the fear of losing that object. So desire, the thought comes down from our intellect and encouraging our heart to move towards the object of desire in the outer world. Anger, when an obstacle arises towards our desire and stops you from attaining it, then there comes anger. When there is no desire, then hatred is not known. The one who has mastered over these two emotions in an independent, solitary manner, true and steady happiness. So a man who has mastered this desire, anger, and fear is a man who identifies the true self. And when that happens, your intellect is clear. It's like a தெரிஞ்ச நீர் மாதிரி. So what happens? நீங்க தெரிஞ்ச நீர் பார்த்தா உங்களுக்கு என்ன தெரியும்? What will you see? See ourselves, and moreover we see in depth what and all it is there in the depth. So in the same way, when your mind is clear, then naturally the true self will come out and you'll be able to see the true self. And the main hindrance that keeps the true self away from us is the desire, anger, and fear. So man will be satisfied by a mere emptiness, a dark cave of total negation. What we think is if what will that emptiness give that man a satisfaction? Yes, because he'll be with his self, the true nature of his self. So naturally, he'll be with 365 days and 24/7 happy. State of complete absence of pain, feeling of contentment and satisfaction. So when that emptiness is there, there will be no desire to get attached to anything in the external world. So naturally, the feeling of contentment and satisfaction will be filled inside him. When the ego rediscovers itself to be the self, experiences solid bliss and enjoyment. So when the ego, that is the ego that we identify, moves away, naturally we will find happiness. So not only withdraws himself from world of object, discovers himself a sense of bliss and security. It does not mean he doesn't he withdraws from the objects in the external world, but at the same time he discovers the bliss and security within himself, not from the objects that is around him or from the people around him. Flooded with light of pure consciousness and alive with divine glow. So that person will be he look divine and there will be a glow around him. And so, being a person in a Grihastha will not be affected what anything that whatever happens in the family. He'll be more centered and he'll be more bliss and happy within himself. This particularly, then when we say all this, our thought will be like, will that person be like a stone statue walking among us? No. What happens within him is Vikshepa and Avarna. What is Vikshepa? Vikshepa is your mind is veiling something. Sorry, your mind is projecting something. What your mind is projecting is the ego that we are attached now. That is the body-mind complex, what we think we are. So this is basically done by Maya. So then this projection, how can this be clear is through knowledge. To understand that ego is not the true self. And avarna is veiling the truth. What happens? We don't know, we would have had hundreds and thousands of births to be born in this birth. So all these births, what we think is this body, mind is ourselves. For us to unveil that and understand the truth, again, what we need is the knowledge. So man understands himself and merges with the self. So man wandered away in his own ignorance and confusion. So what we are is, we are wandering with confusion and ignorance, but lives in ever reviving fire of love. So always that person will be asking for love, affection, attachment, and everything. Identifying all from embodiments as him, the self. That is what I said. Pick all the births from the birth are sold, from the jiva that being born every birth, we identify with this body mind complex as us. So engage in good of all beings. So what happens to that person? That person identifies the self. That is, this body is just the body, and inside the body is the self. So when that is identified, what happens? He engages in the good of everyone around him. So his seva, his work will be only for the world around him. He'll be a self-appointed, he'll be self-appointed person in engaging all the Loga Seva's activities around him. Starts to live in an unbroken consciousness of divine and eternal. He'll always be in the light of divine, and he will be always in a bliss, eternal joy. That what, for us, what we think he might be a stone, like a stone walking around us, but no. Basically, he will be there around everyone, and most of his work will be towards the society, improvement of the society, and he will not do anything for his personal use or for his family. And Kamakrodayuktanam
Yatinam Yatasitasam Apito Brahmani Varnam Apito Brahmani
Varnam
Vartate Viditatmanam.
Vartate Viditatmanam.
Oneness with Brahman takes place both here and hereafter for the self-restrained ones who are free from desire and anger, whose minds are restrained, and who have known the Atma. This is the last verse in the 5th chapter. Another 3 verses are only preface for the next chapter. So this summarizes the whole thing. All the verses what we have already studied only is coming here only. The oneness with Brahman is very, very important. There are 3 or 4 stages for the spiritual growth. First is Kama Krodha Vyaktana. Kama means desire for acquisition. This is already very well explained. Kama is the desire for acquisition. Krodha, anger caused by the obstacle in acquiring things. Anger caused by the loss of things already acquired. So, Kama will invariably lead to Krodha. No, joint brothers by twins. Next. Management of how to manage the Kama and Krodha. Basic principle. My happiness does not depend upon what I have. It depends upon what I am. Always focus on what I am than what I have. Life will be spent on yoga, acquisition, and preservation. Life will be spent அதே acquisition preservation இருந்ததுன்னா we will be lost. The first stage is called acquisition of vairagyam. This is management of Kama and Krodha. Always you think it depends upon, it does not depend upon what you have, it depends upon what you are. Always focus on what I am than what I have. Very good. Next. Second stage, Yathasiddha Sam. Mind is the instrument. As that Madam told the violin, mind is the instrument with which we have to do the spiritual journey. The mind is focused to pursue the spirituality. This focusing capacity is called Samadhi Sattva Sampati. Samadhi Sattva Sampati is focusing capacity. Mind is the instrument with which we have to do the spiritual journey. When the mind is focused to pursue this, that is very, very important. Our mind should be focused. Next. In Kathopanishad, the Kathopanishad Pati Patranam Padichno, Yamanaka compares our life itself into a journey. That he compares body to the car. Sense organ are compared to wheels. Mind is compared to steering. Intellect is compared to driver. Body, sense organ, mind and intellect. If everything are fit enough, then only we can reach the destination. Organized and integrated personality is Yathasiddha Samadhi Sattva Sampati. So all the things, mind, body, sense organs, intellect, everything should go together. Then only we can reach the destination. If anything goes wrong, we cannot go anywhere. So everything should be integrated and organized. Next. Third stage, Yatinam. Yatinam, Yati, Abdina Sannyasi. Yatinam, Abdina, committed study of scriptures is a duty of a sannyasi. If the person follows spirituality in a committed manner, all such people are sannyasis only. அதாவது சன்னியாசின்னா துறவரம் போகணும்னு அவசியம் இல்லை. வீட்டில் இருந்து கிரகஸ்தனாக கூட சன்னியாசி ஆகலாம். அந்த யாரோ ஒருத்தர் கமிட்டட் ஸ்டடி டு ஸ்கிரிப்சர்ஸ் இஸ் டியூட்டி ஆஃப் அ சன்னியாசி. Yati is spirituality is the priority. Yati. Usually Yatina சன்னியாசி இந்த சமயத்தில் அப்படி எடுக்கக்கூடாது. யார் ஸ்பிரிச்சுவாலிட்டியை ப்ரையாரிட்டியாக வச்சுருக்கானோ அவன் பூராமே சன்னியாசி தான். வீட்டில் இருந்தால் கூட அப்படின்னு சொல்கிறார். நெக்ஸ்ட். Post Viditatmana. Systematic and consistent study of scriptures for a long time under the guidance of the complete Acharya is Jnana Yoga. He is a sannyasi. It will lead to a clear knowledge. As he told, is a clear knowledge, clear mind. You can see even the depth of the water. The clear knowledge And that jnani is called Vidyatma. Vidyatma, pronunciation correct, Vidyatma. Systematic and consistent study of scriptures for a long time under the guidance of the competent Acharya is Jnana Yoga, is sannyasi. Brahma Nirvanam Vartate, knowledge merges with the Brahman. Brahma Nirvanam, both rendam one. The merging of the Brahman and Sun. Merger is not a physical event, it is an intellectual event. This merger or oneness is Abhita. Abhita Abhitana Munadium Pinadium. Before death, after death. Render on Abhita. Abhita. The merger before it can happen before death of the body or after the death of the body, both. If it comes before death, it is called the Jivan Mukti. If it comes after death, it is called Vivek. This compare the consciousness முதல்ல explain பண்ணிருக்காரு. Particle இருக்க atmosphere வெளியில இருக்கிற ஸ்பேஸும் ரெண்டும் ஒண்ணுதான். இது வந்து நம்ம இப்பயே நம்ம புரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டோம்னா நமக்குள்ள இருக்கக்கூடிய ஸ்பேஸும் வெளியில இருக்கிற ஸ்பேஸும் ஒண்ணுதான் அப்படின்னு இப்பயே நினைச்சுக்கிட்டோம்னா அது ஜீவன் முக்தி பிஃபோர் டெத். பானை உடைஞ்சப்புறம் அப்புறம் தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டா அது விவேகம்.
விவேகம் ஜீவன் முக்தி அடைஞ்சாதான் விவேகம் முக்தியை அடைய முடியும். ஜீவன் முக்தி, once you attain ஜீவன் முக்தி, naturally after the death you will merge with the Brahman.
இது ஒண்ணுதான் நம்ம தெரிஞ்சு நல்லா பாடின பாட்டு. கண்டுபிடிச்சிட்டேன் கடைசி
இந்த ஏக்கு மேல கூறு போட்ட
அதான் நான் கேட்கலாம் நினைச்சேன். நெக்ஸ்ட் கிளாஸ் வந்து நாம வந்து அதோட ப்ரொனன்சியேஷன் கொஞ்சம் நீ கடைசியா கான்சென்ட்ரேட் பண்ணி ஒரு சின்ன
கிளாஸ்ல சொல்லி கொடுத்தாங்க. அது வேணும்னு சொல்லுவேன்.
இவர் என்ன பண்ணாரு, ஒரு இது போட்டு கேட்டாரு.
நான் ஸ்லைடே போட்டேன்.
நான் அந்த கோடு போட்டது அப்புறமா தான் ரொம்ப நாள் கழிச்சு கவனிச்சு செய்யணும். அந்த 2 புள்ளி வச்சா அதெல்லாம் அந்த பாட்டு கேட்கதான் ஓகே. எனக்கு 5.27 verse வந்திருக்கு. அங்கிள் சொன்ன மாதிரி 26 verseோட இந்த சாப்டருக்கு உண்டான மேட்டர் ஆக்சுவலா 27, 28 and 29 are actually introductory verses to the next chapter, which is Dhyana Yoga, or based on meditation. Parshan Kritva Bahirbahyam Parshan Kritva Bahirbahyam Chakshushaivaantare Bhuvoh Chakshushaivaantare Bhuvoh Pranam Samau Kritva Pranapanam samau kritva Nasabhyantaracharinav. Having kept outside the external sense objects and having fixed the sight between the eyebrows, one should regulate the inhalation and exhalation moving inside the nostrils. So Krishna is telling us how to meditate, basically. So in this verse, Swamiji is saying that why should we meditate? What is the reason that it's so important? Because we have studied so much, we know what is self-control, control your anger, control your desire, everything is there. But in the heat of the moment, you are angry, suddenly நம்ம ஒரு வார்த்தை தெரியாம சொல்லிடும். And most of us will definitely regret, why did I behave like that in that situation? So the thing is, the knowledge is there, but it is not there in our subconscious mind. That knowledge is not available to us at all times. So for complete assimilation, for Nididhyasanam to control and convert our thoughts to become actions in a normal way, we need to assimilate this knowledge that we are gaining. And for that, meditation is essential. It is for internalization of the knowledge we are gaining.
Internalization.
So, breaking up the verse, prana panau samau kritva. That is to make the inhalation and exhalation even. Only when our breathing is even, we are controlled. When we are very excited, when we are very angry, our breath will become dysregulated. We will breathe faster or irregularly. Nasa vyantara charino. We have to breathe smoothly through our nostrils. Chakshu chaivanta re bhruvoho. Withdraw the sense organs, especially the eyes. So, cut off your thoughts. Concentrate. Especially the sight is what instigates us in the first step. So, close your eyes, cut off the external stimuli and meditate. Bhagyan sparshan bhagir kritva. Remove the sense objects from your mind. That is, remove your thoughts. Maybe very easy to say, but slowly it should come to us when we meditate. The thoughts of our family, the thoughts of our day-to-day actions, those thoughts, those sense objects should also be removed from our mind and we should meditate. This is just the basic meaning.
Just for the time, you said for 10 minutes also, what they say for the 10 minutes, we should forget who we are, the wife, mother, daughter-in-law, whatever relationship, we have to be an Atma and sit and meditate. So for 10 minutes, that concentration, you start with 10 minutes, then slowly you can increase.
I have a saying. Meditate பண்ணணும்னு உட்கார்ந்து பண்றதை விட suppose you are having a confusion. இப்போ நான் உங்களை திட்டிட்டு போயிடுறேன் இல்லை நீங்க என்னை திட்டினா it will be within us, right? நீங்க அப்போ போயிட்டு அதை கேரி ஆன் பண்ணிட்டே இருக்கீங்க. எந்த வேலை செஞ்சாலும் நம்ம மைண்ட் அதை திட்டினதோ இல்லை பேசினதோ தான் இருக்கு. ஐ ஹவ் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ். நம்ம உட்காந்து 5 நிமிஷம் உட்காந்துனா அது ஃபுல்லா அது மட்டும் தான் நம்ம கிட்ட வரையில. அந்த 10 நிமிஷம் முடிச்சதுக்கு அப்புறம் அதை மறந்துடுறோம், நார்மல் வேலைக்கு வந்துடும். நீங்க உட்கார்ந்த உடனே அந்த திங்க் தான் வருது.
இல்ல அது திங்க் பண்றதே
மேம் நீங்க மெடிடேட் பண்றேன்னு போய் உட்கார்றத விட அமைதியா போய் உட்காருங்களேன். சப்போஸ் ஐ சே யூ ஆர் அ டாக், how can she say a dog ன்னு உங்க மனசுல பதிஞ்சா திருப்பி சொல்லும் போது அது ஏதோ தெரியாம செஞ்சிருச்சு, அவ சொல்றதுனால நான் டாக் ஆக போறது இல்ல அப்படின்னா நீங்களே சொல்ல ஆரம்பிச்சிருவீங்க. அப்போ அந்த ஃபீல் மறைஞ்சிட்டு நம்ம நார்மல் லைஃப்க்கு போறோம். இதை நான் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் பண்ணேன். ஆனா என்னால கண்டினியூஸா மெடிடேட் பண்ண முடியல.
But what I do, what I follow is that just for 5 minutes of my meditation to start with, I wish God, that is a formula God to think பண்ணிட்டு அந்த God கிட்ட conversation பண்ண மாதிரி a conversation of all the happenings of the day. So வரும்போது you become empty. அதுக்கப்புறம் அந்த நீங்க ஃபார்ம்ல இருக்க கூடாது, விட்டு கொட்டி முடிச்சுட்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் யூ சிட் இன் பிளஸ். நீங்க 10 நிமிஷம் டைம் போறதே பழகிட்டீங்கன்னா தென் ஃபார் 10 minutes 15 minutes அப்படியே யூ கேன் சிட். ஒண்ணுமே இல்லாம மேபி யூ கேன் திங்க். இந்த கான்சன்ட்ரேஷன் இந்த தேர்ட் ஐல வச்சுட்டு உட்காரலாம், இல்ல கோல்டன் லைட் அப்படியே கண்ணு இருக்கிற மாதிரியே யூ கேன் திங்க் அண்ட் மெடிடேட். விச் எவர் இஸ் கம்ஃபர்டபுள் ஃபார் யூ, யூ கேன் ஸ்டார்ட் மெடிடேட்டிங். ஸோ அந்த இனிஷியல் 10 minutes டு ஹாவ் அ ஃபார்ம், இல்ல ஃபார்ம் இல்லாம கூட சொல்லலாம். பட் இஃப் தட் இஸ் நாட் பாசிபிள், யூ ஆர் வெரி much used to talking to a form, then you can have a form of Ishta Devata and you can just pour everything out and then after that you become empty. So then you can sit for, then the thought process will be less.
Same thing. அவங்க சாமி கிட்ட சொல்றாங்க, நான் ஆசாமி கிட்டே சொல்லிடுறேன். நான் உங்களை திட்டுறதா இருந்தா இல்ல யாராவது என்னை திட்டினா எப்படி என்னை சொல்லலாம்னு அவங்க கிட்டே நான் பேச ஆரம்பிக்கிறேன். ஸோ எனக்கு சப்சைட் ஆயிருக்குது. அவங்க சாமி கிட்ட போய் பேசுறாங்க, நான் உங்கள்கிட்ட ஸ்ட்ரெயிட்டா பேசுறேன். நான் உங்களால மனசுலயே திருப்பி முடிச்சிடுறேன். அப்ப எனக்கு எல்லாம் சப்சைட் ஆயிருது. திருப்பி உங்ககிட்ட வரும்போது நான் நார்மலா இருக்கிறேன்.
நாங்க பகவத்கீதை படிக்கிறோம்.
So, அதனால
இது வந்து ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருக்கு. நான் இவங்ககிட்ட இருந்து கத்துக்கிட்டு
you have to train like that.
நான் எடுத்துக்கிட்டேன் மேம். என் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டெப்பா எடுத்துக்கிட்டேன். பட் இப்போ உட்காரும் போது நேச்சுரலாவே இந்த தாட்ஸ் ஃபார் த டேவே வர்றதில்ல. எம்டி ஆயிரும். ஸோ அந்த 5 minutes அதான் சார் 5
To get
minutes
that, you have to come.
sometimes அந்த calm பண்ணும்போது கூட when you start talking இல்லையா you will get the answers which சில answersலாம் வந்திருக்காது but you will start getting that. அதுக்கப்புறம் you will be அப்படியே everything will calm down within you and then formless-ஆ meditate பண்ணும்போது it will be easy for you to concentrate. So this will be the last 2 verses of this chapter. Yatendriya mano buddhir munir.
Yatendriya mano buddhir munir.
Moksha parayanaha.
Moksha parayana.
Vikate bhaya krodho yaha.
Vikatesha bhaya krodho yaha.
Sada mukta eva sha.
Sada mukta eva sha.
Having restrained the sense organs, mind and intellect, freed from desire, fear and anger, and with liberation as a supreme goal, one who meditates becomes liberated forever. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam.
Bhoktaram
Sarvaloka maheshwaram. Sukhritam sarvabhutanam. Jnatva mam sanchita nishchati. Knowing me, who is the receiver of rituals and austerities, who is the supreme lord of all worlds, and who is a well-wisher of all beings, one attains peace. So again, basically, whatever we've spoken about is theory of self-development and inner growth. Only when self-development and inner growth happens, naturally our intellect will be clear like the water, and then we'll be able to identify the self. So basic hindrance for that is desire, the pattern of desire, fear and anger. Desire, the pattern of thought in which mind runs constantly towards a given object of desire. Then naturally the fear follows. Fear follows because fear of losing the things procured or possessed. And anger exhibited when obstacle arises between ourselves and the object of desire. So when these 3 emotions are controlled, then mad impulse of our intellect is controlled. So the one who's freed himself from desire, fear and anger, and he has controlled his senses, mind and intellect, and he has quietened his flow of his breath. So then naturally everything, desire, anger and fear, everything comes down. Naturally you will have a streamline of breathing where your breath will be very controlled. Both your inhaling and exhaling will be in equal space. So when that happens, what happens? Such an individual will remain in the contemplation of the truth. But it's like we say baking a bread, but do we bake a bread? No, we bake a dough. Only then the dough becomes the bread. In the same way, they are telling you that you will attain jnana. So that means it is in the process. So slowly when everything, the pathway gets clear and you start meditating, naturally for you to attain the self will be easy. But do we have a time frame? No. So such a person will be in meditation forever. When everything is clear and you have a peace of mind, then that state is definitely a meditative state. Realize from all our misunderstandings and come to experience the freedom of Godhood. So the mind with the equanimity definitely sees the Godhood in everything and everyone around it. So he attains peace in knowing me, the self. So the self is veiled by the ego, which functions in identification with body, mind, and complex. We all have the self inside us, the Atma inside us, but we are not able to see. Why? It is because it is veiled by the ego, the jiva. Because we consider this body mind complex that is visible to our eyes as us, as the self, which is not the truth. So here, what should be followed to is yagna, that is self-dedicated work, which performs in any field of activity. We have already seen 12 yagnas that need to be performed in the last chapter. So same way, in one word here, Krishna explains yagna. That is, in anything, any work we do, we should have self-dedication, concentration. And this basically, here I can just tell you that past is, you think about the past as you living in a burial ground because the past is dead. Thinking about the future is you are living in the womb of your mother because the future is not yet born. But so you have to be in the present thinking about the work what you are doing. So tapas is all self-denial and practice of self-control which ego undertakes to integrate and revive the self. So some form of effort we should have. That is self-denial. That's something that we get so much attracted to. We should try to overcome it, not suppress it. We are attracted towards sweet. We should find a way to overcome it rather than suppressing it. So the self is certainly, the self here is considered as Maheshwara because Ishvara is the Brahman along with the Maya together is called as Ishvara. So the self inside us was what we are talking here about. The self inside us is called as the Maheshwara because what Deva means, whatever the Deva, the meaning of Deva is illuminator. So all the sense organs in our body is the illuminator that gives the knowledge for us. So like how the 7 gates we studied in the previous verse, the self is the Maheshwara that is being the king inside our body, ruling over our body. So Ishvara is the controller of all fields of activities, perception and expression. So the self, Lord of all individuals, Lord governing, controlling and ruling over the various fields. So Lord Krishna, Sarva Loka Maheshwara. That is a different names that is being understood by each and every individual. So what is it? It's not knowing the self. We have to think it as realizing the self. Realizing the self will be the exact understanding to understand the Atma. So the goal of peace and perfection is what leads us to realize the self. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu
Om Tassaditi Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu
Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam
Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam
Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade
Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade
Karma Samyasa Yogo Nama
Karma Sannyasa Yogo Nama
Panchamodhyaya.
Panchamoda.
Thus ends the 5th chapter named Sannyasa Yoga in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of the Upanishad, which deals with Brahman knowledge as well as the preparatory disciplines, and which is in the form of a dialogue between Lord Krishna and Lord Arjuna. Hari Om.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
So we have successfully finished